Now, Psalms 18 comes with a little bit of historical context as to when this psalm was written. And it says, "To the chief musician, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who spake unto the Lord the words of this song in the day that the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul, and what he said." So we know this is when he was finally freed from being persecuted by Saul. So this is probably around that time where David was made king, basically. So this is what he said. Verse 1, "I will love thee, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress, and my deliverer, my God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation and my high tower." Now that might sound familiar. There's some uh, hymns. There's some hymns that use some of this verbiage to do things. So really some good stuff in here that we can see is some of these. There's a lot of hymns that have been inspired by the book of Psalms. Verse 3, "I will call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from mine enemies. The sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. The sorrows of hell compassed me about, the snares of death prevented me. In my distress I called upon the Lord, and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him even into his ears." So this is, I cried for help. I had all this distress. The threat of death was upon me, and I cried to God, and God heard me from his places. Verse 7, "Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also, the hills moved and were shaken, because he was wroth. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, a fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it." So God is now angry at the people who are fighting against David. Verse 9, "He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and darkness was under his feet." Meaning like clouds, a storm rolling in that he's riding on. Verse 10, "And he rode upon a cherub, and did fly. Yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. At the brightness that was before him, his thick clouds passed, hailstones and coals of fire." So this isn't just a normal storm. This is like a storm built up by a volcano. Volcanic ash is in the sky, volcanic stones flying out, volcano erupts in, the anger of the Lord. So this actually, while this is probably more just metaphorical that he's talking in here, maybe actually during one of the great battles that gave an advantage to him, a natural disaster like a massive quake happened, and then that was resulting, of course, we now know earthquakes often happens with volcanic activity. So an earthquake happened, then a volcano erupts, creates this massive storm that ends up creating all kinds of chaos and problems for the people that are fighting against him. So he was about to lose, and now Mother Nature, or God through Mother Nature, is stepping in to change the equation of the battle now. So it could be that there's some more literalness to this. Most of it's probably metaphorical, but there could be some literalness to this. Let's see, verse 13, "The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows and scattered them, and he shot out lightnings and discomfited them. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at thy rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils." So he sent from above, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. So it's a storm. When volcanoes erupt, they can create their own lightning, their own storms. Maybe there was some moisture in the air, it kind of collided, created a big thunderstorm that came out of this. Hailstones came out, which is mean freezing temperatures in the upper atmosphere as well. That was circulating, a lot of wind building up that are going on. So the breath of thy nostrils coming out, that's the wind being pushed around. So lots of things going on, maybe some possible flooding from the storm that's coming in. Verse 17, "He delivered me from my strong enemy and from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me." So he admits that his enemy was mightier than him. In a normal situation, he would have lost. but because God has helped him, he didn't lose. Verse 18, they prevented me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. He brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands hath he recompensed me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly departed from my God. So this is probably, again, more of the earlier days of King David before Bathsheba and before all those challenges and problems happened to him. That God allowed him to escape, get to a place that was big, that he could spread out. He had a safe place to go to avoid the destructions of these natural disasters that were happening. And he says, because I have kept God's plan, I've kept the commandments, I've done what God wanted, that has helped me to escape these challenges. Verse 22, for all his judgments were before me, I did not put away his statutes from me. I was also upright before him, and I kept myself from mine iniquity. Therefore hath the Lord recompensed me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanliness of my hands in his eyesight. So he's saying that I've been doing the best I can to understand and keep the commandments of God, to do what is right. And he has blessed me with this salvation from my enemies because of it. Verse 25, with the merciful thou wilt show thyself merciful. With an upright man thou wilt show thyself upright. With the pure thou wilt show thyself pure, and with the froward thou wilt show thyself froward. Or with the twisted thou wilt be subtle, basically. So with those who are good, you will show them good. With those who are wicked, you will show them that their punishment, basically. Verse 27, for thou wilt save the afflicted people, but wilt bring down high looks. So this is that same idea of save the poor. If you think of the Beatitudes, basically, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, blessed are those who are persecuted for my sake. Thou wilt save the afflicted people, but will take those who are high. So those who are followers of God are down here. Those who are followers of the world are up here. Those who follow God, who look like poor and afflicted in the world, will be saved. Those who follow the worldly philosophy will be demoted, basically. So that this transition of Zion and Babylon, kind of an idea that happens, basically, that goes on. Verse 28, for thou wilt light my candle, the Lord my God will enlighten my darkness. So equating God to light, which is a really good analogy, I believe, to have. Having light in our life, God lightens our light up. He is our candle. He is what brings light to our life, which goes back to a lot of the analogies of Christ as well. Verse 29, for by thee I have run through a troop, and my God have I leaped over a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is tried. He is a buckler to all those that trust in him. Now, a buckler is a large round shield, basically. So if you trust in God, you use that word of God to help you. He will be a shield and a protection for you against those who want to destroy you. So there's some opportunities God will help us spiritually and somewhat physically too sometimes to help us in our life. Verse 31, for who is God save the Lord? Or who is a rock save our God? So saying that the rock we believe in, the foundation, the sure thing that we can understand and put our faith in is God. That's the rock. Verse 32, it is God that girdeth me with strength and maketh my way perfect. He maketh my feet like hinds' feet, and he setteth me upon my high places. He teacheth my hands to war, so that a bow of steel is broken in mine arms. Thou hast also given me the shield of thy salvation, and thy right hand hath holden me up. Thy gentleness hath made me great. Thou hast enlarged my steps under me, and that my feet did not slip. So he's using a lot of analogy to talk about how what he is doing is, as he follows the commandments and keeps God's will, that God will take our efforts and make it better. He's the reason we are successful, not because of our efforts, it's because of the bonus that God puts on it as He helps us. This is why prayer is important. The more we can pray over things in our life, the more we involve God in our life, in everything we do, the more He can help us. So this is why they talk about prayer. Pray over everything. Pray night and day. Have God in every aspect of your life, because He can then help you more to be blessed. He can take what you're doing and make it better because of you following His commandments and then allowing Him to help you in your life. So a lot of good symbolism and analogies He uses in here. Let's see, verse 37, I have pursued my enemies and overtaken them, neither did I turn again till they were consumed. I have wounded them that were not able to rise. They are fallen under my feet. For thou hast girded me with strength unto the battle. Thou hast subdued under me those that rose up against me. Thou hast also given me the necks of mine enemies, that I might destroy them that hate me. If you have somebody by the neck, you control them. You have power over them. And that's what he's talking about there, is that God has given him power to control his enemy, subdue them. Verse 41, they cried, but there was none to save them, even unto the Lord, but he answered them not. So talking about how his enemies cried to their gods and no one saved them. And then they finally cried to the real God, but because they hadn't been righteous and doing what's right, they were crying for fear of their own life. He wasn't there to help them, because that's not the way we use God. You know, we talk about that analogy that there's no atheists in foxholes. You know, when you get in a tough situation, when you're about to die, you start believing in God. Well, the problem is that's not how God works. He doesn't do this deathbed repentance thing, that we have to be trusting in God to have him help us. And that is an important thing that we look at. Now, we can't say who truly has been trusting in God and who hasn't. So it's not for us to judge other people, but understand the principle that you can't do what you want the whole life and then suddenly praying God is going to miraculously save you from everything. You still have to pay the price. You still have to suffer for your consequences, those consequences of your choices. There's still things to be done. He can't change that fact, basically, is what it's getting at. Let's see, verse 42, then did I beat them small as the dust before the wind. I did cast them out as the dirt in the streets. Thou hast delivered me from the strivings of the people. Thou hast made me the head of the heathen. A people whom I have not known shall serve me. So talking about how other nations who he doesn't understand will serve him and help him. He is made so great. Verse 44, as soon as they hear of me, they shall obey me. The strangers shall submit themselves unto me. That's a good reputation. That's a heck of a reputation, realizing that God is with this man. We don't fight him because his God destroys everybody else, basically. So it'd be better to serve him than to fight against him. Verse 45, the strangers shall fade away and be afraid out of their close places. The Lord liveth, and blessed be my rock. Let the God of my salvation be exalted. It is God that avengeth me and subdueth the people under me. So this is a heck of a moment for David again, as he is subdued his enemies. Saul is gone. Now he is no longer having to hide and run from people. He can now live his life and have more freedom in what he's doing. So this is his prayer of thanks to God for all these things. Verse 48, he delivers me from my enemies. Yea, thou liftest me up above those that rise up against me. Thou hast delivered me from the violent man. That probably was Saul that he's talking about there. Now, verse 49, therefore will I give thanks unto thee, O Lord, among the heathen, and sing praises unto thy name. Great deliverance giveth he to his king, and showeth mercy to his anointed, to David and to his seed forevermore. So this is a great time in King David's life, as he is understanding that his life is, I don't have to run and flee and hide. I don't have to live in caves. I don't have to survive for my life. I can now move on with my life because I am now the king. I have been appointed above everybody else. I have opportunities to have a better future now because of this. I've been liberated from my captivity and my fears. So really good time in his life as well. So let's jump over the next chapter to see what we get to learn about David next.